Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be talking a little bit about Free Guy, because even though it did not win the box office this past weekend, it did finally debut in China, because Disney and China seem to be back on good terms with each other, which again says a lot about Disney as a company, and why they might be the very definition of evil. But before going any further into this review, make sure that you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification turned on. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live onto the channel. So as it says right here, Free Guy has flown to over $100 million overseas with a China assist. The global is now $180 million, which still very much falls short of the film being able to actually reach the realm of profitability. And the biggest reason why is, again, because of just how much money this film cost to make. Some people have tried to say, well, it's not as big of a budget of a film as some others, and that might be true. But at the end of the day, when you do have a film, again, making $111 million by the end of its second weekend, having a cost of $115 with marketing, $172 million, this film is still expected to be at a financial loss. So even at the $179 million it's made overseas so far, rather worldwide so far, it's still in the hole around $64 million. Now, could it potentially make this up with a China release? Not really. And the reason why is because even though people are trying to point out and love to point out the fact that, hey, it started off with a $23.9 million start, people seem to forget that week 1 to week 2 drop-offs in China are typically pretty drastic. So this movie is not likely going to make anywhere close to $100 million in China. If anything, it will get lucky to get to around the maybe $50 million mark. And then they also failed to remember, or at least failed to mention, that they would only get 25% of that amount. And so even though they are still making extra money here, and on the global scale it looks a little bit better, they still are not going to be able to make enough money at this point in time unless we see the film drastically improve. You know, it's already having pretty good legs domestically, let's just be honest about that. But unless we see some massive consistent showings to the film getting to the $250 million+ range, I mean, unless that happens, we're not likely going to see this film actually be able to be at the break-even or profitability point. Now, obviously, as I mentioned before in my last video, when it comes to this specific movie and profitability with Disney, since it was a film that was produced by 20th Century Fox, right, it really isn't necessarily a financial loss for Disney, but the film individually itself, based off of how much money was put into it and how much money it is returning, obviously, it is still, as an individual film, not going to be at the point of profitability because of that. So again, might be a very strong start for China. Again, I think that this is actually a bigger win for Disney in the fact that they were able to get this to be released in China. Obviously, this, I think, kind of now starts to raise the questions of, will we see a Shang-Chi be released in China? Will we be able to see an Eternals released in China, right? Are we going to see these films coming forward get that kind of release going forward? And obviously there was still the talk about Black Widow getting a China release as well. All of these things are now at least on the table, even though they are still in many cases unrealistic and no indication of that happening. But obviously China and Disney seem to be on good terms, which, as I've mentioned at the very beginning of the video, is not really a good look for Disney working with a communist regime, which is, again, notoriously known for its treatment of Uyghur Muslim minority populations. And for some reason, we as in the world, for some reason, just want to continue to forget that China is very much an evil, as far as the government is concerned, is downright evil and should be called out at every single turn, and really should not be worked with either. Obviously, this does not say anything about the actual people who live in the country, but as far as the government goes, yeah, we can pretty much call them out as evil in this way. Speaking of evil, let's talk a little bit about the spin that is now also being put on the box office, because obviously I want to talk about Free Guy, but I also want to talk about this little doozy that I saw this morning, and that is that now, once again, we see the push for racial identity politics being shoved down everyone's throat by the fact that Candyman is being pushed not as a successful film, not as a film that's going to make money. And again, I was able to finally update my box office tracking with the budget for the actual film. And again, as you can see, $27 million there. This film is right now negative $20 million. So very well could still be profitable. So definitely not a guaranteed hit, but also not a guaranteed flop either. The fact is that they are now trying to push this as something that again, really should not matter. If we're going to live in a world of true equality, if we're going to live in a world where we're judged based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin, this is not the way to do it. As it says right here, Nia DaCosta becomes the first black female filmmaker to open pick to #1 at domestic box office. Again, what relevancy does that have in our world? Why can't it just be talented director? A good film makes money. It always has to be focused on race. And this is, again, very much a tactic of trying to divide people. When you break people down to just their race or primarily their race or primarily their gender, what you are doing is you are dividing people. You are putting people into categories, and all that does is create more and more division. Not to mention, in this conversation and in this article, they actually tried to put her on par with other people like Ava DuVernay. As it says here, it says, at this point, at the same time, Candyman marks the second highest grossing 3-day domestic weekend box office opening for a black female director, that record owned by Ava DuVernay and her Disney movie A Wrinkle in Time. So if you were actually going to be honest, if this was going to be your focus, you would also say that she has one of the biggest financial flops of any first-time or any black female director. But you didn't go that route, all right? It's always got to be the positives. It's always got to be spun. It's like, oh, she was successful because of diversity, which again is not really how it works. It's no, people go to see movies based on the movie, based on the story that's being told. Most people that went to go see Candyman were going to see it because they said, hey, this trailer looks like it's pretty cool. This kind of looks a little scary. I kind of want to go see it. So I'm just sick and tired of all of these morons in the media always trying to spin the narrative, always trying to focus on identity politics, even when it comes to actual box office numbers. Again, box office numbers are my jam, and when people try to politicize it with this kind of nonsense, it really does just frustrate me. But Candyman, again, is definitely on the pace, on the road to potentially being profitable. Depends on what that week 2 drop-off is going to be, and if it's able to make money overseas. But at this point, it seems to be on a pretty good pace, and that has, again, nothing really to do with the identity and the racial identity of the person behind the camera, but more so what the film itself is doing and the marketing campaign for that film, bringing people to go out to see it. Because if we base things in our life on race and gender, we are only taking a small piece of the puzzle that is a human person, and we are saying, this is all you are, or this is primarily what you are. And if someone doesn't see how that is a dehumanizing thing and a dehumanizing way to look at somebody, at this point, I really can't help you at that point. But Candyman, obviously, getting the political treatment here. But big news, of course, is Free Guy is showing, in some ways, Disney, China seem to be back on good terms with each other. They seem to be buddy-buddy again. So we'll go ahead and see if Free Guy is actually able to make money, which, again, based on the budget, doesn't look likely at this point in time. But the bigger story is whether or not Disney is going to get some China releases of their bigger films to come out this year. Because even if they do, still think they're going to be financial losses. But what are your thoughts about this? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. If you're watching on Odyssey, you're all amazing and beautiful people. Shout out to Gomer Kyle79 for being a Patreon member. You guys are all amazing. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my August Locals, Patreon, and Subscribe Star members. Starting off with my Locals crew, Cats App, The Real It, D Sharp, Biffer the Hobbit, Robert Barnes, and Goblin Squatch. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on Locals. And now on to my Patreon members, Andrew Hoyle, Brian P., Christopher Bowman, Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Harold Francis, Inflamed Wood, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Lance, Laura, the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mondo Spieler, Mr. Peabody, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, Tina Bojan, and Tina B, the Empress of the Universe. Thank you very much for supporting me over on Patreon. And lastly, to my Subscribe Star peeps, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, John B, Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, and ZK Man. And a shout out to one new member, Hannibal Grimm. And a huge shout out to newest members, Brandon and Joe Horn. Thank you all very much for supporting me on Subscribe Star, and to everyone for supporting me on these platforms. Also, a shout out to all of my YouTube members. You get shouted out at the end of every single live stream. And if you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and every video, please check out my Locals Patreon Subscribe Star. And you can go ahead and find those links in the top link of this description. You can find it's called the Willow link, and it'll have a list to literally all of the social media platforms and all the different ways that you can support the channel. If you join at the $1 level, you can actually get your name shouted out at the end of every single video and live stream. $5 level gives you that, plus you get access to exclusive giveaways of 4K titles. Right now, I've got tons of 4K steelbooks to give away this month, including for Top Gun. I also have A Quiet Place Part 2. I have Snatch on 4K, the John Wick trilogy on 4K, and also I have a Sicario 4K disc as well, and a bunch of others that are going to be coming in this month too. So if you want to have access to any of those types of exclusive giveaways, join at the Army of Asgard level. At the $10 level, the Keeper of the Bifrost level, you get all of that, plus you get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes videos, including instant reactions when I go to see movies. I do quick little filmings of myself and talk about the films that I have seen and my instant reactions to that. You also get access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger once or twice a month, and you get to also ask us any question that you want. We put a Q&A post up, and you get to ask us whatever it is that you want to ask. So again, if that sounds cool to you, Keeper of the Bifrost level. And lastly, there is the Chosen of Valhalla level, where you get all that stuff. Plus, in your first month as a Chosen of Valhalla member, you get a free t-shirt, your choice, ship it anywhere in the world, and also you get to once a month be featured on the OMB Reviews channel, and you get to talk with me. We usually chill out for 3 to 4 hours, and I ask everyone what they've been watching, what they want to talk about, what they want to promote, and it's always a really good time. And so if that sounds interesting to you, please consider joining. That is going to be on Subscribestar and on Patreon only, as Locals is just the Keeper of the Bifrost level. But anyway, thank you all very much for your time, for your support, and for listening to this shout-out video. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless.